The only reason Stefan Gostkowski was let back on the team playing last night after his 4 missed field goals is because he hit the game winner. If he didn't hit that shit from 25 yards out, my TV was going out the window. Eagles fans, what else is new? You couldn't possibly let the Redskins come back and win, could you? Yeah, Chase Young's going to be a problem in the NFL. We all knew that already. Saquon Barkley continues his legendary career as the best running back in football. 15 carries for a career-high 6 yards. Oh, it's against Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's against Pittsburgh. The Giants just aren't good. How about that? Let's see what else. The MVP of the Bears and Lions game was DeAndre Swift of the Lions because he dropped a ball that he was halfway already in the end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the NFL Week 1 full review. We don't have the sunglasses or anything crazy. Not yet. Stay right here. Oh, it's that time again. It's that time again. The beautiful time that is football season. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on Nick's World. It's been a couple of days. We're going to do the NFL Week 1 review. We talk about every single game, what went right, what went wrong. We talk about stats lines, stat sheets, and all of that. And if you're a fan of football, I can tell you this, and you know this already, that Week 1 of the NFL was a complete cluster. The very first game of the week, Houston and Kansas City, was the game that did kick off the weekend. That is right. We're talking about Deshaun Watson, and Mr. Patrick Mahomes is coming off that Super Bowl victory. Some new players here. David Johnson, first game in a couple of years. Obviously, the Texans made that trade to get David Johnson, sending away DeAndre Hopkins, which I still think was a bad decision. Texans and Chiefs in Kansas City. There were 17,000 fans on tap for this game. Now, personally, Kansas City is one of the louder stadiums in football, but 17,000 fans in Kansas City almost sounded like 50,000 fans in any other stadium. Kansas City was in control for pretty much this whole game. When it was all said and done, Kansas City won by 2 possessions. But the first thing that we want to talk about is Clyde Edwards. Now, we knew that Kansas City, I believe Damian Williams opted out of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it put the Kansas City Chiefs in the position of a running back. Now, they did draft Clyde Edwards, who they were high on, and after this game, it's not hard to see why. He had 138 yards and a touchdown. Quite a rookie performance for Clyde Edwards as the running back for Kansas City. Mahomes had a great game as well. He had 211 yards and 3 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins was the top receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 7 receptions for 82 yards. David Johnson was making his Houston Texan debut, and he had 77 yards and a touchdown, so not too shabby for somebody who's had quite an injury history. Will Fuller, 5, also was the top receiver for Houston with 8 receptions and 112 yards. The final score was Kansas City 34-20. There may have been a whole offseason, but it doesn't really look like Kansas City stopped playing football. Mahomes had a great game. Clyde Edwards is good. And if Clyde Edwards is anything as advertised, he's going to be quietly one of the better offensive rookies this year in the NFL. It's way too early to start making predictions for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Any of these type of predictions. Kansas City, again, only won by 2 possessions, but if you watch this game, it felt as if they were in control for a majority, if not all of the game. Deshaun Watson didn't have a terrible game either, but again, he definitely misses his favorite target, DeAndre Hopkins, and that's damn sure. Sunday football, the Jets and the Bills. Now, I had someone at my job who is a Miami Dolphins fan say that they were going to win the division. Now, we all know that, well, we don't know what drugs he was on, but clearly that was not the case. Okay, I would put New England as a division repeat before I ever put Miami as a division winner. And that's just straight facts, and that's just me being brutally honest, okay? Jets and Bills. Josh Allen was on fire, particularly in the first half. He had 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 57 yards and a touchdown on his feet. Stephon Diggs was making his Buffalo Bills debut. He had 8 receptions for 86 yards. The Jets' run game was bad. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Le'Veon Bell left early. Now, whether Le'Veon Bell played the full game or didn't, the run game is not there. He left early. Frank Gore came in. I believe he had like 6 carries for 20-something yards. Jamison Crowder was the top receiver for the Jets with 7 receptions and 115 yards. He had a couple of nice plays in this game. But for the most part, despite only winning by 10, the Bills felt like they won this game by a mile. The Jets are in for what probably will be another long season. No run blocking. The run game will be non-existent. What I'm told, Le'Veon Bell's expected to miss a few games now. Not that the run game has really been anything of any importance for the Jets. But Frank Gore was brought on to be a mentor for running backs and add a little bit of depth. He wasn't really brought on for the standpoint of being a full-time running back. And that's why I think Frank Gore on this Jets offensive line, run blocking, poor protection, all of that, is going to be a disaster. That's my honest-to-God opinion. I do not think that Frank Gore, I think the next couple of weeks, as if last season wasn't terrible already, I think the next couple of weeks are going to be very rough for the Jets running the football, that's for sure. But the Bills would get the win at the end, 27-17, but it felt like so much more than that. The Jets, I believe, will play San Francisco next week, and I believe the Bills, I'm not quite sure who they play next week, so I'm awful for that. Seattle and Atlanta. Russell Wilson coming off of one of the best, if not the best, seasons of his career. And they were in Atlanta, but it was Atlanta without fans, at least from what I knew. Russell Wilson had a phenomenal performance in this game. 322 yards, 4 touchdowns. DK Metcalf is becoming one of the better receivers in the league on year 2. 4 receptions for 95 yards. Matt Ryan was absolutely excessive. I believe he threw the ball 54 times in this game. He had 450 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. A Matt Ryan stat line would not be a Matt Ryan stat line without the interception, of course. 450 yards is great. 2 touchdowns is great. The team still lost. And that's the problem. Todd Gurley was making his debut, and he honestly didn't do that bad. 56 yards for a touchdown. Jones. What am I talking about? Julio Jones. Julio Jones, my favorite receiver in the league. 9 receptions for 157 yards. A great game by Julio Jones. When it was all said and done, Seattle would get this win, though. Atlanta can put up all the offensive firepower that they want, but their defense just does not exist. A couple of players on the pass rush. The Falcons' defense has become really just, as great as the Falcons' offense is, their defense has problems. And their defensive problems put them in the position that is not a great team. 38-25, Seattle would win this game. The next game was pretty much given to Chicago. Detroit should have won this game. The Bears were in Detroit taking on the Lions in an NFC North matchup. Mitchell Trubisky didn't have a terrible game, 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. Average run day from David Montgomery, 64 yards. Miller was the top receiver for Chicago with 4 receptions and 76 yards and a touchdown. Stafford had 297 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Adrian Peterson was making his Detroit Lions debut, obviously, at this stage in his career. Adrian Peterson is not going to be doing that much, but to be honest, he had 93 yards with Detroit. Amendola, top receiver for Detroit, 5 receptions, 81 yards. The ending of this game saw what should have been a Detroit touchdown that was going to seal the deal. The pass was from Matthew Stafford to DeAndre Swift. He caught it. He was literally, I felt like he was 14 steps into the end zone, and it slipped right out of his hands, and it resulted in a 27-23 Chicago victory. Why is, I don't even want to question it. Detroit is one of those teams where if it can go wrong a different way each week, it will find a way to do so. The Chicago Bears win this game. Again, still need to see a lot more for Trubisky before I'm ever sold on him as a quarterback. Average run day, average receptions. Stafford is just another great quarterback that will never win a title and never even sniff the playoffs for quite a while. It's going to be a long time before I don't even know if Matthew Stafford will ever even sniff the playoffs again. The Bears win 27-23. The next game we talk about was, there was no defense in this game. It was another NFC North matchup with the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota taking on the Vikings. If you ever question how great Aaron Rodgers is as a quarterback, just watch him on Sundays. 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers, full effect. Aaron Jones ran 66 yards and a touchdown for the Packers. Devontae Adams has become a top 3 receiver to some in this league. 14 receptions, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. Green Bay put up 43 points on the way to their victory. Cousins had 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Dalvin Cook didn't have as many yards as the team may have liked, but he did have 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen was the top guy for Minnesota. 6 receptions, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Minnesota had no problem scoring the ball, but they were not going to beat Aaron Rodgers on this day because he looked clean as Mr. Clean. 43-34, Green Bay would get the win over Minnesota. It's looking like it's going to be another one of those years where, as decent as Minnesota is, Green Bay will probably be the favorite to come through with the victory when it is all said and done. Then else, Dolphins and Patriots in New England. It is Cam Newton's first start on New England, and it is New England's first game without their chosen golden boy, Tom Brady. There's really not too much of any stat lines to talk about in this game. I will sit here and say this, that Cam Newton had himself a decent debut for New England. Patriots won this game 21-11. Ryan Fitzpatrick at 191 yards, great, but he threw 3 interceptions. That's terrible. No run game, really. Receivers didn't do much. It's just the same old shtick in Miami. Cam Newton had him a decent day. He had 155 yards in the air. He did rush for 75 yards and acquired 2 touchdowns on the ground for New England. New England would get the win 21-11 over the Miami Dolphins. When you look at this, it looks like Cam Newton had a better day in New England than Tom Brady did in Tampa Bay. We're going to talk about that game in a minute. But in all honesty, let's see what happens from this. Let's see what happens. You know, a lot of people shit on the New England receivers and say they aren't that great. They're not terrible, but it's nothing near what it used to be. Cam Newton should be an interesting guy to watch this year. The 2 touchdowns on the ground, and that's, again, New England is going to have a mobile quarterback, and that's not something they're used to having because Tom Brady can't really run. Miami, same old, same old. Choke of the week, presented by Philadelphia Sports. That is the Eagles in Washington to take on the Redskins. Now, the first half of this game, the Redskins looked like the Redskins. And then the second half happened, and the Eagles forgot, or the Eagles just didn't even, I don't even think the Eagles showed up out of the tunnel in the second half. Carson Wentz had 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, though. Dallas Goedert was the top receiver for Philadelphia. 8 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Dwayne Haskins is not very good. That's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. 178 yards and a touchdown. Washington was up Carson Wentz's ass all day long. All day long. Chase Young, debut. I believe he had 2 sacks. Chase Young is going to be a big problem. He's going to be a very big problem in the NFL. The Eagles were up 17-0 at halftime, and the Washington Redskins completely took over in the second half. The Redskins scored 27 unanswered points. The Redskins scoring 27 in any game is kind of surprising, let alone in one half. The Philadelphia Eagles completely flop over in the second half, and that is the choke of the week. They had a 17-0 lead, and they gave up 27 unanswered. If you give up 27 unanswered to any team, you simply just don't deserve to win the game. I'm sorry. Washington Redskins get the win 27-17 over the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles will, I don't know where they're going. A lot of these teams, I didn't look at their schedule for week 2, but that is that in terms of what's going on there. Raiders and Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater is making his career debut for the Carolina Panthers. The Vegas are now in a different location. The Raiders, Derek Carr had 239 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs continues to cement himself as one of the best backs in the league. Year number 2 started off hot with 93 yards and 3 touchdowns. Teddy Bridgewater had 270 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey was not going to be that outdueled by Josh Jacobs. He had 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. Robbie Anderson's first career start, not on the Jets, with the Panthers, was very good. 6 receptions for 115 yards and a touchdown. This game was back and forth, but when it was said and done, the Raiders got the job done, and a lot of that is due to Josh Jacobs. 34-30, the Raiders get the win over the Panthers. Not a terrible debut for Teddy Bridgewater, but nonetheless, a very run-heavy game on both sides. Combined 5 touchdowns on the ground between Jacobs and McCaffrey. Raiders get the win over the Las Vegas Panthers. Over the Panthers. AFC South matchup. A lot of debuts Sunday. A lot of debuts. Colts and Jaguars in Jacksonville. I don't know how many fans Jacksonville had. I know they love to praise Gardner Minshew. The Colts could not get the job done. A typical Phillip Rivers stat line was presented. 363 yards, a touchdown, but 2 interceptions is not very hot. Minshew had 173 yards, which isn't a lot, but he had 3 touchdowns, and he was 19 for 20 through the air. The Jaguars get the win 27-20. Still not sold as Minshew as a quarterback. Marlon Mack, from what I'm told, was hurt, and he tore his ACL in this game. The Colts have some depth in the run game, but that is not good because Marlon Mack is a very good running back when he can stay healthy. But that's just something that's affected, and that is no good. That is no good in the AFC South. Browns and Ravens. Cleveland is not a very good team. They may have good players, but they're not a very good team. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt balanced the run game for Cleveland in this game. It didn't do much because they only got 6 points, and the Ravens torched them. The Ravens love to annihilate Cleveland. 38-6, the Ravens won this game. Now, they have a question. Kareem Hunt is if Nick Chubb just had a lucky year last year, is Kareem Hunt... Now, I'm just confused as to what they're doing with Cleveland's run game going forward. Kareem Hunt continues to outplay Chubb, which I'm not sure is going to happen. Are they going to keep him? Lamar Jackson had another fantastic stat line. New year, same Lamar. 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 45 yards rushing on the ground. Marquise Brown was great. 5 receptions, 101 yards. The Baltimore Ravens ripped the heart out of the Cleveland Browns 38-6. And it doesn't look like anybody outside of Pittsburgh will be a legitimate threat in this division. And even Pittsburgh, I don't see being a threat either. Chargers, Bengals. Number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, is making his career debut. How did it go? They did not get the win, but I can't sit here and tell you it was his fault. Tyrod Taylor did not look that good. He really didn't. This was not really that great of a game. I didn't sit and watch it, but I can tell you by talking about it, it was just not a good game. It was not a good game. Tyrod Taylor did not look good. Eckler had 84 yards on the ground. Joe Burrow's first career start was not terrible. 193 yards, 1 interception. 69 yards from Mixon on the ground. A.J. Green is back on the field. 5 receptions, 51 yards. The game was 16-13 Chargers at the end. The Bengals had a chance to tie it up and send it to overtime, and they botched the field goal. 16-13, the Chargers get the win. Joe Burrow should be interesting to watch. I believe this is A.J. Green's first game back. Give him a break. He probably had a tough day. I don't know who was guarding A.J. Green Sunday in their game. But he could probably had a tough day, so that's where that goes with that. The game that a lot of people were looking forward to, myself included, wasn't really as great as I thought it was going to be. The Buccaneers, being led by the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, on their way to New Orleans to take on the Saints, who should easily be a Super Bowl favorite to anybody that knows football. Tom Brady's first stint on New England, how did it go? Not so great. He was 23 for 36. He had 239 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he threw 2 interceptions, and that's not something that we see from Tom Brady too much. Now, some people are going to say he threw those interceptions because he was playing against New Orleans. That's a possibility, but I wouldn't sit here and say that that's exactly why that happened. Ronald Jones, that is. I'm sorry. Ronald Jones on the ground had 66 yards. Chris Godwin had 6 receptions for 79 yards. Breeze was pretty good. 18 for 30, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Latavius Murray had 48 yards. And Brandon Cooks had 5 receptions for 80 yards. The run game was silent for New Orleans. Michael Thomas was a non-factor in this game. And despite that, New Orleans still got the win 34-23. Despite all of that, the Saints still got the win. And the heart and souls of their team weren't even a factor. So that's what's kind of scary. You want to talk about something that's scary? That's scary. 34-23 Saints. We get to the next game. An upset, maybe. The Arizona Cardinals have a lot of hope going into this season because they like Kyler Murray and they have a nice addition. Kyle Murray had 230 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He also rushed for 91 yards. DeAndre Hopkins had a fantastic debut in a different color. 14 receptions, 151 yards. The Cardinals hold down the San Francisco 49ers in an NFC West battle, 24-20. George Kittle had a bit of a nagging injury. There's not too many stat lines. Mostert as well. Jimmy G had 259 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mostert did a lot of work on San Francisco Sunday. He rushed for 56, also caught for 4 receptions and 95 yards. But when it was all said and done, Arizona got the win. So is that a statement by the Arizona Cardinals that they are coming? We do not know. Sunday Night Football. Final game of your Sunday. Cowboys going to Rams. Cowboys, all the star power you could imagine. The Rams, some good names on defense. Prescott had 266 yards and a touchdown. Elliott looked slow, but he got his way. 96 yards and a touchdown. Cooper had 10 receptions for 81 yards. Goff, 275 with a pick. Malcolm Brown running the ball for the first time without Todd Gurley. The run game for LA was pretty decent, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Robert Woods had a great game, 6 receptions, 105 yards. 20-17, the Rams would get the win at the end of the game. I wouldn't look into this too much for some people that are freaking out a little bit with the Dallas Cowboys. You know, the Rams, it was a good game played, but the Cowboys are definitely on the clock for what needs to happen. Monday Night Football, game 1 of 2. Pittsburgh going to New York to take on the Giants. The Giants are just not good. I'm sorry. Pittsburgh has a phenomenal defense. Ben Roethlisberger's first game back. 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. Looked great. Snell ran the ball well, 113 yards. Juju had a good game. 6 receptions, 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. James Conner, I believe, left this game early with an injury. What else is new? James Conner is always hurt. Daniel Jones had 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, but of course he had to throw 2 picks. Good game for Darius Slayton, 6 receptions, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, despite this game being by 10, it felt like Pittsburgh was ahead of them by a mile. 26-16, the Steelers would get the win over the Giants. Big Ben was pretty successful in his first game back. And the Giants now will play Chicago. So if they thought that the Steelers' defense was bad, wait till you see Khalil Mack coming at you. Daniel Jones has a lot to work on. There is potential, but there is so much to work on. Final game of the week. As a Titans fan, this was the second of 2 on Monday Night Football. This game absolutely aggravated my soul to the core. This was an never seen. It was the same thing last year. We played the Broncos. It was terrible. We were able to get this win, but man, was this an ugly football game. Ryan Tannehill had 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. Henry had 116 yards on the ground, but it didn't feel like it. It felt like he didn't really have much room. He didn't feel like he was going anywhere. A.J. Brown was really a non-factor. Corey Davis had a great game. 7 receptions, 101 yards. Drew Lock was overthrowing the ball. Maybe they call it Mile High Stadium for a reason, but Drew Lock was overthrowing that thing all night long. 216 yards and a touchdown. Melvin Gordon had 78 yards in his Bronco debut and a touchdown. He also fumbled, a crucial fumble. Noah Fant, 5 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. But the story of this Titans game was Stefan Gostkowski, who was taking his talents out of New England to go to Tennessee. And his Tennessee debut was one of the worst debuts. And had he not kicked that field goal that won the game for the Titans, he would probably not have a job this morning. Stefan Gostkowski missed 4 field goals last night against the Denver Broncos. But he managed to hit the one that counted the most, a 25-yard field goal at the end of the game. The Titans won this game 16-14. Do everything you possibly can to not go back and watch this game, because it was not a good game. It was not a good game. I'm sorry. I'm all for defensive games, but this was really ugly, and I don't even know what to say to that. It was just not good. It was not good. The Titans get the job done. They will now play Jacksonville, and Denver will play Pittsburgh next week. That is all for the NFL Week 1, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody, as always, for watching. Continue to stay safe.